Welcome to another episode of the Hoopsfix Podcast with me, your host Sam Neater, full-time British basketball advocate. And on this week's show, we've got none other than Jason Swaine, an all-time great shooter, a multi-year pro, multi-title winner. He's done it all and been around a very long time. One of the things I like about him the most is that he's actually still playing. It's clear, and it comes across in this, just how much he loves the game. Even though he might not be a professional anymore, he hasn't hung them up. He's still playing as and where he can, and the passion really comes through. He's a great storyteller. There were some awesome stories in this that he shared of his time, both in the BBL, in the National League, and with the national team. And it proved to be, a really enjoyable conversation. We haven't caught up in a while, so it was wicked to kind of get into it with him. And I think you'll really enjoy the conversation. As always, before we get into the show, please take 2 seconds to check out our Patreon account, patreon.com/hoopsfix, patreon.com/HOOPSFIX. There, you can sign up to give us a monthly or annual contribution of as much or as little as you would like. For the price of a cup of coffee, for the price of a sandwich, every single month, you can support the work that we're trying to do in growing British basketball and making it more visible and increasing the knowledge around the sport. So if you value it, please consider it. Check it out, patreon.com/hoopsfix. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below, let me know what you think. You can reach out to me on every single social media platform at Hoopsfix. Or if you want some private one-on-one interaction, drop me an email, sam@hoopsfix.com. Anyway, that is enough from me. Here is this week's show with Jason Swaine. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hi Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to catch up. I've been wanting to have this kind of career retrospective with you for a little while. But before we get into all of that stuff, today is obviously the last day of the BBL season. You've had a chance to be courtside and see a lot this year, maybe compared to previous years. I'll be interested to kind of hear your take on the BBL this season, how you think the league is doing. As someone who obviously played for a number of years, two and a half decades ago, ish. So it'd be interesting to kind of hear your take on sort of how things have been, where they've come to, and kind of the state of the league, where you think it's at the moment.
Yeah, so first of all, playing in 2000, the year 2000, 2001 was my kind of last BBL year. And playing in arenas, playing at Manchester, Sheffield, it was a great time to play. And then it kind of tailed off a bit. But I actually was, before I even got into the commentary stuff, I was really interested. It really started to grab my interest again this season. There's a lot of really top players in the league, a lot of exciting guys that you would probably pay to watch again. And it seemed to be gathering momentum, and it's just a shame for the fans because of COVID and whatnot. But I think sitting courtside, I've been fortunate enough to experience a really good product this year. The teams that I've watched, different styles, the riders that have obviously won the league. Being at Manchester, one of my old clubs that I really want to do well, and then Newcastle, are always there and thereabouts, and then the Lions have been great, and Plymouth at the end. So it has been a great game to watch. Most games that I've been courtside I've really found interesting, especially as the season's gone along. There's been a few games with the COVID stuff that players have not been available, coaches have been missing at different times, but overall, it's exciting, and there's some players that I'm actually thinking I'd like to see him play, I'd like to see them play. So it's been exciting, Sam, really.
I feel like COVID's been a bit of a double-edged sword in the sense that, of course, it has negatively affected the league from a monetary standpoint and everything else, but also the fact that all of a sudden a lot of people have been sitting around at home, where in previous years they would be out and about on the weekend when games are played, and there's been wider access to streams, and obviously there's sort of a growing group of internet creators that are sort of covering the league. It's definitely felt like that sort of helped. The league being more competitive this season than it has been in previous years has helped obviously in terms of the product on the floor, but then also just the coverage and the access to being able to watch it, access it compared to previous years. Obviously, the Sky coverage makes a massive difference. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens when the doors do open and fans start coming back again, and whether or not that continues, and obviously people start going out. Because obviously it remains to be unseen. But yeah, it's been. I was interested to know, did you follow the league in detail kind of in the last few years, or is it really this season that you've kind of got more into it?
To be honest, I didn't. And I think it's with the Giants, he started to change, owner Jamie Edwards, who I played with, and it started to get me a little bit more interested. And no, I haven't. One of my main passions now, believe it or not, Sam, is netball with my daughter. So one of my main passions is netball with my daughter. So that really has been something that I've really got into over the years, and I've kind of put basketball to one side. My son is not around anymore; he's in America, so it's. But this year, I've really been interested in it, and I think you're right. People like yourselves, I mean, there's no one better to promote the sport. Hoopsfix has kept it going, and we've been able to watch things on Instagram. We've been able to watch things on Twitter, different things like that. So that, I agree with you. That's been good in a lot of respects.
You brought up netball there. Netball is it's fascinating for me because it's a governing body that really has their stuff in order, so to speak. And anytime, funny enough, actually last week I was watching. I'm not a big netball fan, but I was watching a BBL game on YouTube on Sky Sports. And I think afterwards, when the game finished, it was just still up on my screen. And on YouTube, it auto plays to the next thing that's like your next related video or whatever. And it was a netball Super League game.
Yeah.
And it was at the Copper Box, and it was during. It's obviously it was broadcast recently. It was during the lockdown and stuff. So. But the level of game day presentation, they had LED boards that the benches were sitting behind. Obviously the floor all branded up. Just everything about it, the feel of it, it was just super impressive. And they've been like that for years, kind of ahead of where the BBL has been. And obviously the level of funding and sponsorship they've been able to raise has been incredible. So yeah, it's a super interesting sport where, when you consider they appeal to 50% of, if you're saying the population is roughly 50% male, 50% female, it's only accessible to 50% of the population. Their numbers in comparison to basketball are just ridiculous. And it does make you think basketball could be doing a lot better from that perspective. Like, obviously, your daughter's quite a high-level netball player.
Well, she plays at the moment for Leeds Rhinos and Leeds Athletic, and she's in the under-19s. And she's a promising talent, but so is so many other kids at that age. So she plays for that franchise and she enjoys it, and she works exceptionally hard, Sam. So we'll see where that takes her. But yeah, Elias has become kind of the main sporting interest in our family, which is it's great because I go to netball and I literally have no politics within it. I don't know anyone, so I turn up and I enjoy the game. I'm starting to do a bit of coaching with elite netball, so a lady called Anna Carter who's doing that development stuff. I'm starting to work with them quite a bit, and coming from a basketball perspective, my netball is limited, but I'm learning as I go along. So it's exciting for me.
Do you find it's hard for you to enjoy basketball in the same way as a spectator or as a fan, because you're kind of always got the basketball mind switched on of looking at how the game's being played and what's being ran and stuff like that? Or do you find actually it's very easy for you to kind of switch between fan, player, coach, whatever?
Well, now I'm at a point where I really, really enjoy watching the game. I enjoy watching it in England. I played at Bradford for a few years, and I guess now my son is not here, it helps a lot, because I'm not thinking, oh well, how's he doing? How's he playing? I can just go and objectively watch a game, and I enjoy both, Sam. I'm still very passionate about basketball. I hope that didn't come across like I'm not, because I am. But I've just got two sports I really enjoy watching now, and yeah, so I do enjoy going to the games and just zoning out and enjoying the game, really.
All right, so let's wind it back to the beginning. Starting with always kind of what made you first pick up a basketball and how you first sort of ended up, playing the game.
Yeah, so it was quite funny, really. I mean, I'm from Halifax, which I don't know. Probably a lot of people watching this would be like, "Where's Halifax?" So anyway, yeah, I'm a Yorkshireman, and I've always played football. So I was fortunate enough to play once or twice for Huddersfield Town boys, and I was a footballer until probably 15 years old, and I was walking through my local leisure centre, Northbridge Leisure Centre in Halifax, and we had some family over from Luxembourg, and there was nothing going on that evening, and they said, "Why don't we go watch a basketball game?" And I was like, "Well, I don't really want to do that. I want to play football with my friends." And my dad was like, "Well, come along with us." And I said, "Well, I'm playing football," but it absolutely rained cats and dogs that night, so I was like, "I'll just go to the basketball." And I was on the edge of my seat. I watched Cat Johnson play. I watched Curtis Xavier play. Norman Findlay, Dave Harris, and I was like, this sport is unreal. And I was just transfixed after that. Unfortunately, the local leisure centre, they put on summer activities that you could go to. So at age 15, I started attending these activities with a lot of other youngsters, and just got into playing basketball, and just literally didn't get out of the gym after that. So that was how I started playing.
Did you transition away from football, and did it become all about basketball, or were you kind of doing both and seeing how things went?
Yeah. So my first year of playing, I probably started watching at 14, but at 15 years old, my first year of playing, I played both. I played football and basketball, and as you know, with many young kids that look into different sports, there comes an age where if you want to be good at one of them, you can't do both. So I was playing football, and it helped my football because it helped my quickness a little bit, and I was able to suddenly play better on the football pitch. But then I had to make a choice, and I kind of developed rapidly in that first year. Fortunate enough to play for Curtis Xavier, who's probably responsible for 80% of my success, if I'm being honest. And fortunate enough to play for him and develop drastically and be in the gym all the time. And I just thought, I could actually be okay at this sport. So I just said, football, I can't do that anymore, and concentrated on basketball.
I feel like Curtis Xavier is drastically underrated or underappreciated. I think he's come up a few times, both on the podcast and in conversations, private conversations I've had with people, as someone who's had a massive impact on the sport in that area. Like, what was it like for you playing under him? Like, when you look back now, like, what do you think are the key things that you learned from him?
The key things, I mean, this is probably goes with every single coach that's been good for anybody, and players that speak about coaches fondly. It's not just basketball. It's about life. It's about habits. It's about becoming a man. So at age 15, I never played junior basketball. I never played for under 17s, under 19s. I just didn't do it. So I played in Division 3, which is now Division 2 because it was 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, I played what is Division 2 basketball now from being 15. Had to sit on the bench, but Curtis Xavier is somebody that's taught me things that I thought I couldn't do. Pushed me to limits. I mean, at times, excruciating limits that I just thought, what am I doing this for? And as you keep going along, and a lot of nights where I hated him and things like that, but he also taught me about life, and he also believed in me and loved me to an extent at that age. And I just think, technically, as a coach, I never had any bad habits from him. So I didn't play in the park. When I caught the ball, I didn't dribble it first before squaring up. Little things that to play on a successful team. Sam, if someone gets the ball and then they're dribbling it and somebody's cut, and well, you can't pass it now and they're all bad habits that you pick up from just learning the game with your friends. I didn't have any of those. So I learned the game from scratch, and I learned good habits and good ways to work and good practice ethics and things like that. So, I can't speak highly enough of Curtis Xavier, and I think in terms of you saying he's underappreciated, I'm not sure he is, but I also don't think if it was the NBA or it was somewhere else, there'd be a role for player development for Curtis Xavier. Whereas in the English game, is there that role for him? And I think that's the way I look at it. You know, he's definitely not underrated for myself and many other players that have worked with him, but just does he fit? Does he fit in? Do the clubs fit him in a lot of respects?
Yeah, that is something that I feel like a lot of people have been talking about more recently. It's kind of when you finish playing, where are the roles for the ex-players? You know, what is the pathway for a career after basketball? Because we don't have that basketball economy like in America or other European countries where there is a lot of money in the sport to be able to employ a lot of people professionally. Those opportunities just don't exist in the same way, and you know, hopefully over time that will change. But even you see it with the Sky Sports deal this year. All of a sudden, you've got Kieran doing sideline reporting, and other guys, Anthony Rowe and guys being able to sort of jump on and help out, which is obviously paid gigs, which puts them in front of people and kind of helps their career in the long run. And we need more of that. But yeah, obviously it takes a long time. So when you were 15, 16, were you looking at it like, were you trying to pursue a career in it? Did you see a future playing basketball?
I saw a future playing the game, and you know, I was playing with adults that were good players then, you know, and I saw a future in, I believe that my work ethic and the coach that I had would get me to be a lot better as a basketball player. Did I see myself at that point playing for England and, you know, playing for my job? Probably not, until I was about 17 years old, and then it started becoming like, well, you know, I could actually be quite good at this. But this is again the foresight of Curtis, was that he knew what I could be good at, and he concentrated on just that. So as you know, in my early playing days, I wasn't a superstar. I played with great guys like Steve Bucknall and Amaechi, that were Roger Huggins, that were far, far better than I am. Let's not get it confused. They were Tony Dorsey. They were great players. But I was able to do one thing better than everybody else, and that's shoot the ball. And I also played harder than most people. So and he knew that, did Curtis. So me being 15 years old, he saw that. He saw me at 25. Which, how many coaches do that? You know, or how many coaches think, well, for me to win, I need to be able to do this. But he concentrated solely on me as a player and said, you know, this kid has the great attitude, and he valued that. And at the end of the day, I was basically just a chubby kid from Halifax, and it shouldn't have happened, Sam. So we shouldn't be sat here talking about this, you know, and that's kind of what I remember him most fondly for, really, if I'm being honest.
When we talk about great shooters, which obviously you were, R1 still play a little bit, you know, in interviews with them, the talk is always of just getting reps up, you know, just practicing, you know, getting that muscle memory and just getting shots up. Like, when you talk about the hours that you were putting in, you know, your work ethic at that age, what were you doing? Like, whether it's, you know, in practice, outside of practice, like, kind of what was your sort of workout regime looking like? How did you become a great shooter?
So it kind of changed for me a lot. I would say I always got in the gym and shot the ball. I always valued, through Curtis's, you know, things at the beginning, and my mum and dad's encouragement, really, I would always get in the gym. I would always find a court, and I would always shoot 200, 300, 400 at a time. And I would have, and in the days of before the gun, you know, and I'd have to get my own rebound. So this took a lot of time, and I would always spend a lot of time. But my real change was after my first year at Sheffield, I would say, Sam. So 20 years old, probably. That first year we won the league. I'll make no bones about it. I was a bench guy. I had a lot of DMPs. I was a young guy. I was a practice guy. I played probably average 4 minutes a game. You know, I was one of the guys that was just getting better at that point. But I was frustrated because I was not given a chance by the coach. You know, he's not giving me a chance. And I had that mindset. And And it was Curtis actually that called me and said, "You're not doing this, you're not doing that." And he basically said, no one cares. You have to work harder. You have to work more focused. So I changed my level of time. A lot of guys spend a lot of time shooting, but I changed that into, excuse me, quality time. So 30, 40 minutes of just hard work, really, and just focus. And that's what changed it for me.
Do you feel like that was the point that you actually became a good shooter? Like, were you a good shooter as a junior, like, in your younger years coming through, or do you feel like it was actually not until after your rookie year that like it changed and you sort of become recognised as, this guy can shoot?
Yeah, so I always had a good touch for the ball, and I always kind of had a quick release and understood spacing and understood games and things like that. But I think, I remember back to Manchester, me and Ronnie Baker would literally be, 400, 500 shots before and after practice every day. And yeah, I think shooting the ball as a skill becomes like an OCD trait, Sam. I think, it involves sight lines. It's a specialist area, isn't it? That can't be influenced by anything else, and you can zone out and say, right, if I can do this at a certain speed and I can knock this down and I can challenge myself and shoot when I'm tired, and if I'm not scared of the big moment and I'm willing to, lay it all out on the line, things like that. I mean, you look at what Steph Curry does now is still unbelievable to watch, even though we see it every week. And guys like Ray Allen and Reggie Miller, I mean, how focused they were, not just on the court, but before they got there, organising their equipment, things like that. And I think there's a lot goes into shooting, and I think a lot of it is a mental skill as well.
Who were the players that you were looking up to when you were young coming through?
Are we talking England, or are we talking just in...
Both? Like, when you talk about kind of who your inspirations were, like whether it was English or abroad, or both? I
mean, in general, my inspirations have been my parents, but if we're looking on the basketball court, I fell in love, like I said, with basketball through Cat Johnson. I always liked a guy, Mike Landell, at Leicester. This is a lot. He played with Carl Brown at Leicester. I always liked his game. I always watched him. In the UK, I enjoyed watching the shooters. Like Matt Hubbard was a great shooter. And I guess in the NBA, the two guys, Chris Mullin was my favourite player growing up for the Warriors. He was my favourite player, and then John Starks for the Knicks. I'm a Knicks fan, and at last we win in this year. So at last, I mean, we've sucked for so long, Sam. But yeah, John Starks, because he just brought that fearless energy, and I kind of identified with shooting the ball and just not giving a damn about who you're playing against. I like that in him. So yeah, those were my guys in the NBA, though, Mullin and Starks, definitely.
What was access like to the NBA in the early 90s, being in England?
So I was fortunate, this is years ago, and I was fortunate enough I was hanging around with a girl at the time who had Screen Sport. And it's probably the only reason, so she had Screen Sport. So there was a live game on a Friday, and then there was a NBA action was on at 6:30. So, there was access, but it was limited. I mean, we can see it every day. Every time we switch our phone on, it's there, isn't it now?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was limited, but I did manage to get it as much as I could. But it was staying up till all hours, recording it on your video back then. And but yeah, if it was there, I watched it.
So just rewinding quickly, we've already got to your first couple of years in the pros, but why did you make the switch from Calderdale to Doncaster?
Oh, so Curtis left and went to coach Doncaster.
Okay, so you did stay with him the entire time.
Yeah, the club folded, and I wasn't sure whether I was going to make that team at Doncaster. We had Tony Holly at the time was our main guy. We had Wendell Francis, who came from Oldham. There was the Americans, the team. Kevin Penny, who was another great guy at Manchester. So we had guys like that.
And this was Division 1, right?
Yeah, this was Division 1. So what is Division 1 now? And yeah, we had a very good basketball team, and I went along hoping to just make the team. Ended up starting all year, and we won the league and the cup. So that's how I ended up going. I just said to Curtis, "Can I come and try out?" And he said, "Yeah, it's going to be a long shot, but give it your all and let's see."
What was the level of competition like in Division 1 back then?
Yeah, it was good. We had Coventry were a good team. The Donaldson brothers, if you can remember, Dick Donaldson, his son plays now over here. I don't know if he's still playing over here.
Was he the one you played in Reading?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I don't think he played last year, but yeah, they had a good team. Crystal Palace, Russ Saunders was at Crystal Palace, and Ronaldo Lawrence, whose son is now at Plymouth, was on that team. And yeah, it was just a good time. A lot of teams were down. I guess there were like 4 or 5 really strong teams in that league. And at that time, it's kind of a different game now, Sam, isn't it? So it's always hard to compare.
Yeah. Was it still sort of semi-pro? Like you had some American professionals or whatever, and some guys that were still working and doing and trying to balance the two.
Yeah. So me at Doncaster at that point, I was one of the younger guys who was actually on a kind of YTS kind of thing like they used to do in football. So I would spend my time learning about the leisure centre and things like that, and I would go and be like a kind of young professional on the books and get paid a little bit of money for doing that. But then the Americans would come over, and we had 2 Americans at the time, like I said, Tony Ollie and Wendell Francis, and they came over and they were our paid players. So, and the other English guys who also got a little bit of money as well. So you can probably say, yeah, semi-professional, I would say.
Yeah. So you were a junior playing in amongst the seniors. Who were the other guys that were kind of your generation that either you knew of, that sort of you saw as talented? I mean, were a lot of them actually playing in senior competition, so you didn't see them a lot, as opposed to if you'd played, under 19s, under 17s, or whatever it was at the time? But yeah, who were those names? Were you even aware of them, because it was just mainly you in senior competitions?
I wasn't aware of a lot. I was aware of guys that were playing in the league above. So at that point, Stephen Hansel was playing at Birmingham as a young player, who's obviously, far outdone me in what he did. But what a tremendous player he was. So Stephen Hansel and Adrian Anderson were both at Birmingham. I guess Andrew Sullivan was playing as a junior. So I kind of watched the guys that were above me playing. I guess they were guys. I guess there were guys my age playing in senior basketball. But yeah, those guys I obviously remember very fondly and watched, thinking how good they were at the time.
And so then, turning pro, like the opportunity with Sheffield, how did that come about? And like what led to that actually happening? Someone working through the leagues is kind of like I feel like it's a little bit more rarer for, obviously we've seen it in the last couple of years actually with a couple of guys getting call ups from Division 1, but generally it's like you kind of we see you're starting that league and you stay in that league, and that's it, and it's hard to kind of get the movement up as opposed to downwards. It's a lot easier,
Yeah, and I guess it's coaches taking a gamble on some guys really and saying, how good are they going to be? I mean, we've got coaches that value that in the English game and coaches that don't. So it came about, Sam, by Jimmy Brandon, who was at Calderdale and just remembered me as a kid, and then saw, well, he's playing at Doncaster and they've just won Division 1 and he's starting. He's only 18 years old, so he must have improved so much over that short space of time. So he got on the phone and asked me, would I play? And I knew Sheffield then, they had good sponsorship. The league was quite a profitable league. And I originally said, well, no, I'm going to stay in Division 1 because the offer wasn't what I wanted. But then, fortunately, 4 games into the season, he came back to me and said, we're willing to take on what you said and get me involved and playing. And I was playing still for Curtis at the time. So being the coach that Curtis was, he says, you can't stay with me. You have to go now. You've got to go and he didn't want to hold me back in any way. He wanted to give me that opportunity, and he said it's something you can't turn down. Obviously, I was overjoyed to be playing in the BBL at, I think it was 19 years old, and just moved on from there, really.
Did you have a kind of welcome to the pros moment where you were like, put on your back or whatever it might be?
I think one of the moments in my first couple of years, so there were many times where, guys were just better than me at that point, and I was thinking, this is going to be really tough to play. I would say I never backed down from anyone. I never really feared or idolised anyone to that point. I had that I don't care attitude. But one of the moments was in my second year. I got the call up to play on the national team, and we were at Crystal Palace, and I walked in, and I was quite wary of meeting Steve Bucknall, because although I won't say I played against him because I'd not got much court time for Sheffield the year before, but the year after I did, I went against him quite a lot. But I remember walking into Crystal Palace and kind of introducing myself as if to say, I'm Jason, like he didn't know me. And he immediately said, listen, I know you are. We know you are. We expect you to do this, this and this. And that was it, as if to say, you're now a pro, and I was so kind of worried about meeting this guy because, he's played for the Lakers, and not only as a basketball player, as a formidable kind of competitor, So yeah, that was one moment that I thought, yeah, I'm actually involved. I'm actually in this now.
So it would just be interesting, like as a 19-year-old playing in the BBL, and it's up to you how much you want to share. But how much money could you earn? Were you actually like a full-time professional? Were you still living at home? Were you put up in housing? Like, what was the situation? It'd be interesting to kind of hear about it.
Yeah, so my first year at Sheffield, I actually worked in Huddersfield. I'd left school. I worked at Foot Locker in Huddersfield, and it's amazing because people around the area, and come on, Sam, I used to have hair up there and not down there, so people still say to me, you used to work in Foot Locker, and I think, wow, that's 27 years ago, and people still say that. So yeah, I worked in Foot Locker, and I drove to practice 4 nights a week, and got a little bit of money for playing, and all my travel, and that was my first year. But my second year, I actually signed a bigger contract. So I worked for Adidas. I lived with the sponsors in Sheffield. Me and Ian McKinney lived in the same house with them, which was a huge house. The Evans family, which were great, and we lived with them guys. And I worked for Adidas coaching in the schools, and I also was paid for playing basketball. So that's when I started making quite decent money in my second year there.
Did it feel like playing in the BBL at such a young age? Did it feel like a thing? Do you know what I mean? Like, was it like kind of I don't know what the best way of describing it is, but like good for the ego in the sense of like like I'm a professional athlete. I'm playing in front of lots of people every single week. Like, kind of, yeah. How did it feel?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had the opportunity. I had a scholarship offer to go to CW Post in Long Island. And Curtis was in touch with the coach, Tom Galeazzi, at the time, and I was asked, do you want to go play out there at Division 2 school? And it was something I considered. Part of me wasn't ready to move away from England, but the main reason I didn't go is I saw a future. I saw a future in me playing in the BBL. I saw, if I can get onto that next level and play, that there's a future for me in this game, and I'm glad I made that decision. But so many guys now, it's the same decision they have to make, but the landscape in some respects has changed. So yeah, it was on TV. It was on TV every week. We were known. Around town, people knew who we were, and yeah, there was a big buzz about playing in the BBL. I was proud to be on the roster even at that point.
I feel like that's one of the big things that's changed, and maybe it's changing again reverting again back now, where it did have that kind of aura or it felt like it had that aura when I speak to people kind of from that era. How many people were you playing in front of every single week?
Well, the first year at Sheffield, we were at Ponds Forge, and we would fill it. So I'm guessing over 1,000. I'm guessing people, or roughly around that mark. And then the next season, where it really started to change, and we were at Sheffield Arena. The Giants were at Manchester Arena. So some games you would sell out. I remember playing in front of, I think it was around 14,000 at the MEN. And there was a game in Birmingham we played where we broke the attendance record at the NIA for Sheffield that we played around that similar. Don't get me wrong, every week wasn't that, but I would say Manchester Arena at Manchester would probably have 3,000 to 4,000 people in it every weekend.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
interesting. What would you attribute the change in your role? So rookie year with Sheffield, you won the league, you won the cup, right? But like you said, minutes were hard to come by. It was your rookie year. You're 19 years old or whatever, and then next year you signed a multi-year contract, was it? And you then started playing a bigger role. Like, what was the situation?
I mean, it's funny when we talk about contracts, and so many people will say, your professional career. Well, I always consider a profession having a tax code. You're getting paid and you're having a tax code. So many guys, well, I'm a professional basketball player or I'm a professional athlete. Well, you're not really. You just, my first year at Sheffield was when I got a tax code. My next year, every year I re-signed. I wasn't one of the top players that someone would say, listen, we're going to have you here for 4 years. Like Roger Huggins, we're going to have you here for 3 years. We're going to do this. Yeah. So my next year is when, fortunately, we were in the McDonald's Open and we were in Europe, is when I did start to really play, which was just good timing, I guess. But what do you think? Why do you think your role changed so much? Was it because your game, is it because your game got so much better? Is it because opportunities opened up on the squad? Like, what was this? What caused that switch? I'm not sure my game changed. I just knew I had to be the best at what I did. I just knew I had to be able to shoot the ball better than anybody else, and I wasn't allowed to miss. And there's a few ways you can look at that. A lot of younger players now, and in all sports, and this is why I'm quite tough on my kids with this, that they will say, well, I got taken out because I missed a couple of shots. And the other guy got to play, and he missed loads of shots, and he stayed out there still. Or that's the mentality, and it's not fair. Well, life. I was trained probably by Curtis that life isn't going to be fair. It isn't going to be. And okay, you're talking about you missed those 2 shots. Well, that's on you. You don't miss those 2 shots. So I was actually in a position playing for Jimmy Brandon where I knew I couldn't miss. So I kind of accepted that. Well, okay, I'm not going to miss. So I'm going to come in cold and I'm going to make sure I make every shot. And then you cannot leave me out of the game. You cannot still sit me there knowing, because you're going to look silly. And I guess, it's embracing that challenge ahead of you. And the first couple of years in that second season, I was shooting about 75% from 3. The first couple of months, and then guys started to know, well, this guy, don't leave him. And then you've got guys who are in your airspace a lot more, and I wasn't good at going off a dribble, so then your percentage starts to come down. Yeah. For the first couple of months of the season, I was shooting. I hardly missed, to be honest.
You led the league in 3-point shooting. That was the season you led the league in 3-point shooting, right?
Yeah, it was.
Second year. Yeah. Would you know what your season averages was? What you finished with?
I think it was 49 or 50. I'm holding on to the 50, Sam. It's a significant milestone now. I think it was around that 49 or 50.
Yeah. Decent. Yeah. Decent. You mentioned there the McDonald's are open. When I first found out about this a few years ago, it blew my mind. Can you explain what the McDonald's Open was, why it happened, how it came about, and obviously what it was like as a player to play in it?
Yeah, so probably the greatest tournament many guys will ever play in, but the McDonald's Open every season happened as a pre-season tournament, and it happened with the champions of various countries. So the standout team from the NBA champions, always played in the following year's pre-season tournament. The team from Israel, there was Americans, Israel, Italy, Spain, and Australia. So the Perth Wildcats played in it from Australia. Then they had Bucknall Bologna, who had Orlando Wooldridge that year. Then there was Real Madrid, played Maccabi Tel Aviv, who had Tom Chambers playing, and then the Houston Rockets, who obviously won with Hakeem in that year. So, I mean, the buzz was that it was great, but fortunately that year it was in London. So the host team that won the league always got a pass into the pre-season tournament, and it was Sheffield. So we'd won the league and we were playing in the McDonald's Open for that pre-season. And fortunately I had a really good summer that year, and I was able to get quite a bit of court time playing in that tournament, and we were in Europe that year too. So that was, I mean, just mind blowing. I mean, you can't find this on the internet now, and I'm really gutted. But I sit in between Robert Horry and Tony Kukoc in 3-pointers made in the McDonald's Open, and I got a printout of it years ago, and then I was looking for it, and there's very very limited stuff you can find on the McDonald's Open because it's not a tournament anymore. But yeah, it was just, when you look back, it was just unreal. We were in that tournament.
It was only played in London that 1 year, right?
Yes, yeah, it was a
London. It was at Wembley.
It was at Docklands, so it was where the Leopards played.
Interesting. And how many games would you play? All the teams, or was it in pools?
So this is the annoying thing. So when we played Madrid in the European competition, we only lost to Madrid by 3 in Madrid. You know, we ran them really close. We were up 17 at half time. You know, but when we played in the McDonald's Open, we lost to them by, I think it was like 18 points. So they beat us quite convincingly. And then we played Maccabi, and we lost his first 2 games. So we didn't get to go against the Rockets, and we didn't get to go against Perth, because they were through to the next round. So we matched up against Maccabi and Real Madrid, who were great teams, you know. But they beat us. I think Madrid beat us by quite a lot, and Maccabi maybe 10 or something. But you know, we didn't disgrace ourselves. But we weren't the best team in that competition by far.
Was there a big buzz around the McDonald's Open, in terms of drawing in the fans and being on TV and just in the UK? Kind of, what was the reception of it?
Yeah, it was great because Channel 4 did a lot of work then, if you can remember Scoop Jackson and Dave DNLY, whatever he was called, you know, those guys. So they were always around us when we were down there. We stayed Park Lane in London, and the cameras were always there. The Hippodrome, I don't know if the Hippodrome is still a thing down there, but that was a big event the night before where all the teams were, and we got to kind of socialise with each other, and the cameras were there, and there was a big buzz about it. I think there's still a little bit of footage. I think I've put some on YouTube around when the McDonald's Open was on, but Channel 4 covered it immensely at that point, yeah.
Wow. And just briefly, you mentioned, so you played Real Madrid in Madrid, and you were up 17 and a half, and you ended up losing by 3.
Yeah, so we played them in the European Cup, and anyone who's played in Europe for any point will understand, and this is where guys that have played abroad at, in England we back our teams, but in Europe they win no matter what, and we're up 17 at half in Madrid, so we walk into the locker room and we guys, this is it, we're going to beat these guys, and they were the European champions at that point. So
What year was this?
This was my second season, so...
Second season?
I'm thinking...
95, 96.
95, 96, yeah. Yeah, so and we're thinking, we're going to get Madrid here. This has not been done before. We didn't get one foul called in the whole second half. So the press were after them and all sorts. And we didn't... I remember Roger Huggins going to the bucket and just getting absolutely hammered on every play. No foul, play on, and we didn't get one foul the whole second half, and we lost by 3. And it was one of my kind of best moments, but worst moments. I think I was in true style at that point in my career. I was 3 for 3, 9 points, played 11 minutes. And just, but to be out there on that court against those guys and get that close was a thrill, to be honest, Sam. But yeah, no foul in the whole second half. I can't get that.
Unbelievable. Is there footage of that game anywhere?
Pardon?
Is there footage of that game anywhere?
I don't know. I'd love to see it. I mean, there is footage of us playing various European teams scattered about, but I don't think there is. But yeah, it was nearly.
So you ended up making your England debut age 21, 96, right?
Yeah.
What was that like? Sort of getting that call up, and again, you've already spoken about your kind of meeting of Steve Bucknall. I'm assuming that was at that camp. But like, who were the other guys on the team, and kind of what was that experience like first getting involved with the national team?
So once again, timing is everything, and Laszlo Nemeth, who is a great coach and still a great friend to this day. I work all the Euro camps with him in the summers, and what a great person he is. But he took the England coaching job, and at that point it was Calderdale, and God bless Calderdale. What amazing coach he was. But Laszlo Nemeth took over, and he really valued the outside shot. So guys that would have probably been picked before me were now, well, we need guys that can space the floor and shoot. So within the English game, myself and Ian McKinney at that point were very good shooters, and it just, the call came out of the blue. You've been picked for the national team, and I thought, wow, what? Just wow! It shocked me. And turning up, I remember driving down with Roger Huggins in the car and Ian, and we turning up. I'm thinking, I'm going to play for England. I mean, this is ridiculous. I didn't know whether I'd get picked into the team. And we're going down to Crystal Palace against, and they're playing Hungary, and hopefully I'll get to put on a jersey. Let's see. And I remember the national anthem being played, and I was so proud to be playing for my country. Scants was out at the point with an injury, so I got to wear my beloved number 8 for once, which he took back straight away when he was fit. So yeah, I remember just suiting up and got to play quite a bit in that game. So it was great. It was just unbelievable experience.
You ended up picking up 24 caps over your time representing the national team. Like, what are the standout memories for you, both, I guess, in games against competition, but also, maybe training camp, maybe, traveling, hotels, whatever it might be. Like, when you look back on those times, what are the things that come to mind that you look back on fondly?
Yeah, so the game itself, you look back on the experience of playing with great players and playing against great players is good, and you're playing for your national team. But aside from that, the guys on the team and the trips, I mean, we were fortunate enough to play in Saudi Arabia, which many people won't go to, or won't be able to go to now, or won't have the experience of going to. Fortunate enough to do that. We played in Yugoslavia when it was Yugoslavia. And just the general, I always tried to get out and see countries. So when we went, I wasn't a guy to stay in my hotel. I wanted to get out and experience life, and just the life experiences it brought, the teammates that I played with. I'm still really in touch with Ronnie Baker, who's a good friend, who's he's my child's godfather. So you build up Mike Bernardo I speak to every week, and you build up just a really strong network of people, don't you? And just all those experiences with guys like Martin Gottfried that was on the team at some point, and Delmy Herriman, who were just, Steve Bucknall, who was a good guy, John Amaechi, who was an absolutely phenomenal player and a good friend too. And it's just, all those experiences just make it, Sam, don't they, in professional sport?
When you look at the likes of Amaechi and Bucknall, guys that obviously played in the NBA, was it clear to you their level and their ability was higher than everyone else's? Like, do you think that, like playing with them, playing against them, was their talent abundantly obvious?
At times, yes, but then again, you had players that were. I would probably say on the national team, I was maybe eighth, ninth off the bench. Coming in playing maybe 10, 15 minutes a game. But these guys were the cornerstone of the team, like Amaechi and Bucknall were the two guys. But then you had guys who weren't far behind, so like Roger Huggins, was right there. I'm sure there was other guys, Ronnie Baker, who was phenomenal point guard, leading caps, Peter Scantlebury, so those were guys that weren't. It wasn't a massive gap when you got to that level, but there were times where Steve Bucknall and John Amaechi would just kind of just take ownership of the games and just say, right, we're going to try go out and score. But they were not only great players; they were great teammates, Sam. For a person like me, they always mentored me and they always empowered me to do better. I felt like I could really achieve playing with them, and they were great teammates too. And exceptional players, it goes without saying, for what they did, right?
Were there any standout victories in your time with the programme?
Yeah, we were a good team. We played well in the Euros. The one that got away, and there were standout victories, but the one that got away was Russia in Guildford. We played Russia, who at that time were the European champions, and they were so good. And this is what I mean by, I go back to Madrid and about not getting a whole call in the second half. So we're playing Russia and we're down 3 with 8 seconds left. And I'm in the game and I'm thinking the ball's going to come to me and I'm going to shoot a 3 and we're going to go to overtime against Russia. So, this is going to be unbelievable. And I remember Delmy swinging the ball and I think I skipped it to Amaechi and he shot this 3. And sorry, we were down 2, and he shot this 3, and I'm thinking that's going in, and he missed it, and Delmy Herriman tipped it in right on the buzzer. We're in England, no problems. We're going to overtime with Russia. The whole of the table, who are English, stood up, no basket. so we end up losing, and we could have gone to overtime against the European champions. So yeah, there were wins and there were losses, and Luxembourg, we played there and we gave them a real good hiding, and I managed to make, 8 or 9 3-pointers that game. That was good, but that game stuck in my mind because we should have been going to overtime against these guys, right? But
you'd think you would get a favour off an all English table, but no, that's typical British basketball. Isn't it?
Hey, I'm not sure if they were all English, but you're in England. That basket's good. That should have been good, and Delmy Herriman's hit should have counted. But yeah, that's a good memory.
Unbelievable. So jumping back to the BBL, what ended up leading to your departure from Sheffield?
So it was a sad one really. I was there for 3 years. It was at the time where they changed with the Bosman ruling and 5 Americans was allowed. And that my final season at Sheffield, I still played. I still played quite well, but the following summer, I was told, that we're going to sign you. Just hold on, just hang on, and so I hung on, and so I waited, for contracts to be sorted out and what you do, and fully believe that, I would have been taken care of. I've been there for 3 years, so I will be playing at Sheffield again. I will be ready to go. The coach was going to be Chris Finch the following season. So, it was a kind of fresh start from Jimmy Brandon, who was, who I really enjoyed playing for. But, this was Chris Finch coming in from a player to being a coach. And we all know how good he's become, right? So I was looking forward to that following season. And then I got a call in the summer to come into the office, and I was told that they'd gone in a different direction, that my contract wasn't going to be renewed. I was going to be released, and they was going to pick up an American shooting guard. Now, they made the right decision because it was Terrell Myers. So obviously we know how good Terrell Myers was. But unfortunately, that left me in a position where I was surplus to requirements, and also I didn't have a contract. And because the following season I'd done so well, I would have been able to get a better contract. But I guess that's the nature of sport and how it works, right? So I ended up going to play for Chester that following season. So that was why I left Sheffield. Never really wanted to leave, really loved playing there, but just through circumstances and then wanted to go in a different direction, I found myself needing another club. So I joined Chester Jets at that point.
Was it a case of like, okay, you haven't been looking for a new contract because you thought you were going to get a contract from Sheffield? All of a sudden, it's late in the off season. You're like, damn it! Like I've got to find a job. Like, was it a case of like calling around other clubs and seeing whether there are opportunities? Did people sort of hear on the grapevine that you weren't getting renewed, and then they came to you? Like, did you even have options? Like, what was the situation?
Yeah, so I would have definitely had options earlier on in the season. Thames Valley and London Towers were. Cadle was interested in having me go there, and we spoke a lot on the phone. And Thames Valley, Paul James at that point, was, and Michael Hales, who was coaching at that point, were interested. But then again, they're signing their guys early. So Martin Godfrey, who was a good player, was at the time he signed for Thames Valley, and then I think Tamir Berkovic, who played at London Towers, he was a shooter. He signed then, and I wasn't available because I was going back to Sheffield, so it came as a bit of a shock to kind of think, well, no, I'm not going back. So then I managed to get an agent. Dan Davis was my agent. I thought I better get someone looking out for me here. So he then took on that role, and he said, listen, the Towers would have been interested, so would Thames Valley, but at this point, we're struggling. Guys have been signed, and I wasn't like a marquee guy. I wasn't one of these guys. I was a role player that could help your team, but I wasn't someone who was going to make or break your team. So I ended up thinking I need to go somewhere where I know I'm going to play, and I know there's an opportunity. So I was fortunate enough to go to Chester, which I was ecstatic about at that time because I knew they only played 5 or 6 guys every year. And I was going to be one of those guys. So I was excited about that opportunity in the end of it all, really.
But why did it only end up being half a season with Chester?
So yeah, it ended up being limited money, if I'm being honest. It wasn't a big budget. I was one of the guys getting paid, and we did discuss at the beginning of the year that, is this okay? Is it going to work? We moved house. My wife moved a job across to Manchester, and we live kind of in between Manchester and Chester because I'm Huddersfield based. So we moved over there and rented a property. I was quite young and money naive at that point, I would say. So it just got to a point where this is not working. I'm going to have to look at something else. And we discussed that earlier on at Chester. Is this going to be okay for me? But I saw the opportunity to play. I saw, it being a good opportunity, and it just couldn't go on as it was going on. This was, from the professional side of things, it just couldn't work. So, then Manchester came in and wanted to take me on, and it was either I was going to stop playing for Chester and I was going to go home, I was going to get a job, or I was going to find another team. There was my only 2 options. But it's a shame because I absolutely loved my time at Chester Jets. I loved the arena, I loved the fans, I loved playing for Mike Burton and Robbie Pears at the time. I played 35 minutes a game. What's not to like? So yeah, it was a great experience, to be honest.
What was it like then making the transition to Manchester Giants?
Different world. Totally different ball game. True professional organisation. Owned by the Cook Company. A lot of money involved in that. Bigger contract, and just a great experience. Practice every day. Physio, health club. Other benefits that came with it. And yeah, it was good, and I kind of brought that kind of raw passion when I came to Manchester. I was 6th man during that first season, playing with Robert Churchwell and Ronnie Baker, Michael New, and thoroughly enjoyed it. But because I think a lot of Americans that come over have been involved with that level of professionalism all their life. So they come over and kind of see these clubs as, well, that's just how it should be. Whereas I knew what time it was when I arrived in Manchester. I was like, this is great. I'm going to appreciate this, and I'm going to work my ass off still. So kind of grabbed it with both hands. The transition, in terms of playing basketball, I enjoyed both. But in terms of being a professional organisation, yes, Manchester was by far the number one at that point, weren't they?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, comparing that to the rest of the league and how the rest of the league was operating, was Manchester literally on a completely different level?
I wouldn't say on a different level. I would say they were the standout team, but you had Newcastle United then. So you had Sir John Hall involved in Newcastle United. Sheffield, you had Mushroom Records that were involved with them, and they were playing at the arena. You had London Towers that were massive, playing at Wembley. You had London Leopards that were at the Docklands. Birmingham was at the NIA. Peugeot were involved with them. They were still big teams within that league, but Manchester just had the arena NBA kind of feel to it. So it had the scoreboard. I remember teams used to walk in and play against us and just watch the pre-game show. The cheerleaders were there, and it was just the commentary, and there was a buzz about being in that arena, full stop. So yeah, I think that, but I still say there were many teams in that league that were great professional organisations too.
Having been close to the Manchester Giants this season, and obviously you mentioned Jamie Edwards involved now. Do you feel like Manchester Giants basketball could get back to that sort of level of hype professionalism, whatever you want to call it, or do you think that's still going to take years of investment?
I hope so. I hope. I mean, come on, Sam. We all want it to. We're all. I mean, your passions, exceeded most involved with basketball. You come across. You saw. There's no agenda for you. You just want English basketball to be really good, and we all do. We all want that to happen. So I'm not sure how long it will take, but it's definitely, to me, this last season has been better from a number of teams. It was a shame that London didn't get to play in Europe. That was a shame. I would have loved to have seen that, but yeah, I'm not sure how long that'll take. Getting back in the arena, I know, is a goal of a lot of owners. I'm quite sure Jamie is wanting that club to go on and do better things, which is good. I must mention, they really started being a lot more competitive. I know Lloyd Gardner did a fantastic job, and a true gentleman to speak to, by the way. And it seems to be on the up. But even like your arenas you've got, so Bellevue, Leicester's arena, Newcastle's arena, they're really good arenas, and they're still going to hold a lot of people in those places. So, professionally, it looks a lot better than it did in previous years, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. So when you left Manchester, you went to Teeside, which is obviously Division 1, but you had massive success there. Was it? Did you feel like it was a step down? Like, did you feel disappointed going from the BBL to Division 1? Like, did you feel like you wanted to have more years in the BBL before going to Division 1? Or actually, for where you were in your life, and obviously the opportunity at Teeside at that time, it was a good situation.
Yeah, the situation in Teeside was a great situation. I mean, they were run by a project called Reach for Success with the late amazing guy Tony Hansen, that ran that, and they were funded very well. So I still got it was still professional at that point. But the reason I chose to do that is, life. It was a great decision because my son was born. Eisley, who who's played in the Hoopsfix games, so he was born at that point. So I had to make a decision. It was never going to be professional enough for me to make a lot of money playing. Guys that I played with, it was an option for them to make a lot of money. They were sought out by so many teams. I wasn't at that level. So I didn't want to be one of those guys that was 35 years old and washed up with no money. So I kind of made the decision to go to university and start getting a degree and start getting involved in teaching, which I do now. And I made that decision, and I couldn't do that by playing in the BBL. There was not enough time. Mm-hmm. I understood for me to be good, I had to put in more time than everyone else. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't. So, yes, okay, I made the step down to Teeside, but who knew it? Those next 4 years would be some of my fondest memories playing in that Division 1 team, and obviously being one of the main guys in that team.
Looking at the titles, am I right in thinking you did a treble 3 years out of 4? So 2001, 2003, 2004, you won Division 1 national trophy and the playoffs, right?
Yeah. So, not one to gloat, Sam, but during those 4 years we were playing, whoever else was Worthing, whoever, you were playing for second. You were playing for second because you're right. Those three out of the 4 years we swept. You wasn't getting a trophy, but one of the years we only won the cup, and then the playoffs and the league were won by, I think, Plymouth won the playoffs and the league. So yeah, and still some of my fondest teammates come from that team who I'm still in touch with, and we were able to really just dominate, and we beat Leicester one year in the cup. So they ended up winning their BBL playoffs, but we knocked them out of the cup.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we were probably a team that was good enough to play in the BBL, if I'm being honest.
Who else was on that roster with you?
So we had Ralph Bucci was the main guy, and it was funny when I first got there. I had a bit of I'm a BBL England player. I'm going to run this team, as you kind of think. And it was Ralph Bucci was there, and EJ Harrison, who was a Final Four winner with UConn, was there. So us three were kind of vying for who's going to be the main guy. It quickly became apparent that Ralph was the main guy, and EJ at times would take over games, and I would just get as many points as I could, So it was Ralph kind of led that team, and he was an exceptional player, an exceptional friend as well. But yeah, it was really, really fun playing there, Sam. Really good fun.
So, kind of after your period there, that was when kind of, I guess, your teaching career started taking precedence, and then you continued to play National League. Actually, looking down the list of teams that you play for and kind of what you've done since, like one of the things I love about the fact that you didn't just hang them up, like so many do. It's like rather than saying I'm gonna just I need to just focus on this career now. It's like I'm gonna carry on playing because I love it again. Well, I assume because I love it again, and you loved it. Like, and still to this day you're still playing, right? Like even if you're not playing National League, you're still playing a lot of basketball. Like, what do you think has kept you playing? When so many of your peers stopped a long time ago, and don't really pick up a ball at all anymore. Like, why do you think you're still doing it?
Sam, I really, really love basketball. I just, you will hear people say, I'm a baller, I love this game, and then they'll say, well, I'm going to take a break for a couple of months. I couldn't do that. I really, really love it, and it was never about the prestige and the arena. It was about the two hoops when you walk in a gym and being able to play. And I still okay, I'm 46 years old, and things don't move like you don't move like you used to. Let's not get that twisted. But I still love the game. I still love seeing a basketball hoop in a park, and I kind of feel so lucky that I do, because I know so many guys that have kind of not fallen out with people, but just not love the game anymore. So when I walk in a gym, I'm excited. I'm looking, thinking that net looks nice, or things that you do as a kid. I still have that, and I'm fortunate enough to do that.
Of course, one of the other things I'm aware of time, but one of the things I wanted to talk about before wrapping up was being one of the rare people, duos, to have played with their son on the same team. Can you talk about that as an experience? Playing at Bradford with Eisley as he was coming through, and I guess what that meant to you and how it was like in terms of managing it. Like, playing with your teammates is one thing, playing with your son is a completely different ball game, I assume.
Yeah, and it's probably the greatest years of my playing career. So I would say those. I played at Bradford for 3 or 4 years. And how I got into that was I was playing in Division 3 and I was playing at Huddersfield and then Leeds and I was just enjoying the game, still at a decent level, and I was enjoying playing and teaching. But he was at Bradford and he was playing the juniors, and Chris Mellor, who's another good coach I played for, was sitting him on the bench at games. So as a dad, I'm going to that game because he might get 3 or 4 minutes at the end if they're either losing by a lot or winning by a lot. So I'm going to that game thinking, he's got a chance of playing. And then the next day I'm going and playing my game. And I'm thinking, I could still play. So why don't I just play on this team? Because I'm here anyway. So why don't I just play? So he started getting better and he started playing. And it came at a time where I was still playing 30 minutes plus into my 40s. And he was playing 20 minutes. It may be because of injuries but whatever, he was playing 20 minutes. So when when I played with my son, we were teammates. We were proper teammates. We would hold each other accountable. We would be in the locker room, having not father-son stuff, teammate stuff. And the best thing was that Chris Mellor always treated us just like teammates. We weren't father and son. But to play with him and just, it was just, I can't tell you how good that feels, and I can't tell you how important it was for both of us, I would say. And he's obviously my best teammate I've ever had. So yeah, it was great, Sam.
Do you know of any other father-son duos that have played together in the national leagues at all? Well, or the BBL, but I'd assume it's more likely in the national leagues than it would be the BBL.
Do you?
Nothing comes to mind, but you would know better than me, seeing as you've seen more of it than I have. Yeah. But it'd be interesting if anyone's listening, if they know of anyone, to let me know. But it could well be the only father and son duo. It would be amazing if LeBron does it. He's talking about he doesn't want to retire until he gets a season with Bronny, which would just be unreal.
On slightly a little bit better level than we were. No, how cool would that be? That'd be awesome.
Next level.
You could see him doing it by the physical shape he keeps himself in, right?
100%. Like the level he's playing at now, you think he's definitely got a few more years. And Bronny's 17 now? So he's got like another couple of years. I think he becomes draft eligible in 2 years. I think it is something like that. So
and LeBron could walk into the office and say, "Listen, I'll play, but this is a two-person deal."
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
he's got all the leverage. Incredible. But before we wrap up, let's just do some sort of quicker fire questions, which I always like to finish with.
Can I just mention, Sam?
Yes, go on.
Interrupt you, but can I just mention one of the major successes around me playing and still enjoying playing is my family. My wife Gail has always supported me, and my daughter Elias is now into a sport. So me being involved in sport and through Eisley and Elias now, and supporting my wife Gail has been amazing. And I know I couldn't do this interview without saying that, because it has been the constant throughout whatever I've done. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. I think I always say to people, life. I feel I can do a lot of the things that I do because I don't have a family in that way. And when you are in that situation, it changes things drastically. And having that support, the people that are actually willing to back it and kind of make it work, is a completely different scenario than if you were in a situation where it's like, oh, you're going to basketball again, oh, you're traveling around the country, you're not with us on the weekends, and if it makes it all easier. So I totally understand. I think it's a nice thing to do. So totally appreciate it. So quick fire questions. Starting with you're in a different. Normally, I ask the best British junior player that you've ever seen. I'll ask the question anyway, but obviously because you're in senior competitions, I don't know whether it's a kind of different situation. But if irrespective of what they did at senior level, when you think about before they got to the age of 18, are there any particular standouts that you saw played against, obviously British, that you thought were legit?
Oh, and I can still comment on now, right? So as long as the juniors, I would 100% pay to see Cameron Hildreth play. I mean, there may have been better guys down the past, but that we all want him to do well. We really do, and I know his father, and I know he just seems a humble guy who is hungry, who wants to get better, and how good is he? He's ridiculous. So let's hope he keeps his feet on the ground. Let's hope he achieves a lot of success, and we can shout about that. But yeah, I would say Cameron Hildreth has been the most exciting junior for me to watch.
Who's the best British player that you played with or against?
Ooh, the best British players. Well, yeah, it's not easy because I played with quite a lot of good British players. But you could throw, in terms of success, you could throw Ronnie Baker into the mix. Scants was great, Delmy, Mike Bernard. But the two standout guys are Bucknall and Amaechi for what they've done. If I had to pick one, you're putting me on the spot here, Sam, which is, I guess that's your job. But Amaechi probably went higher in the NBA in terms of playing what he did in Orlando and things like that. But both, Amaechi, a great friend, a great player, and Bucknall, just a great teammate and a great player as well. So those two would be the two English guys, the best I played with.
What's the best individual performance that you've ever witnessed?
Oh, probably Voicey Winters, who I played with at Sheffield. So are you talking about on court with?
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
So Voicey Winters, who could find the glass from any point. At Newcastle, we played Newcastle away, and he'd not been playing so great. And he came to me before the game and he said, "Jay, when you spot up on the weak side and I skip it to you and you open and you space the floor a little bit, that's not going to work tonight. I'm not going to pass. So I'm not. You just run back because I'm not passing." And for me, I wasn't of that level, so I just had to say, "Yeah, okay." And he said, "I'm going to get 50." And I think he did. I think he just went out and got 50. And not just the performance, just the way he did it. The confidence that he had in saying, "Yeah, I'm not giving you the ball all night. Forget that. I'm just going to shoot. 4 guys on me, I'm still going to score." And so, I mean, there's been many great individual performances, but that one sticks in my mind for the sheer arrogance of how he did it.
What is your favourite basketball memory?
My favourite basketball memory, there's a few. Playing for England, playing in the McDonald's Open, being selected for various times, but probably every time I stepped on court with my son, is my favourite basketball memory. Also, him going to University of Findlay, things like that. Those are my fondest memories, and the one thing that stands out is I've always been very precious of my number 8 that I've wore on various teams, and I never said I would give that up playing. And then when my son started playing at Bradford with me, I remember before the game going over to him, I get quite emotional about this now, and saying, "This is yours now. This is yours, and I'm going to wear a different number." I picked up 21. Which I wore from then on, just because it was the free shirt. But yeah, that was one of my greatest memories. Of giving him that shirt, really, in terms of playing. So yeah, sentimental value, I guess.
What do you think is in the future for you? I guess both on the court and off the court. How many years you got left playing? And then what are you hoping to do in the next sort of 3 to 5 years?
Well, I enjoy playing in the Masters, and I enjoy playing locally with friends. But basketball is not the priority now. I'm involved still in the coaching. I've really started getting into the netball coaching too, through Elite Netball, so I do quite a lot of that. And also the commentary side of things, I really enjoyed that this year, working at Manchester and doing that. And I would love to get involved. I know like Dan Routledge and Kieran at Sky and Anthony Rowe do a fantastic job, don't they? I mean, how good are those guys? But it would be nice to be given a chance at doing something like that, and just keep developing in those different areas. Being a teacher, still enjoy doing that. So I guess teaching, a little bit of commentary, and a little bit of coaching will be where the focus is for me going forward, Sam.
Perfect. That's a perfect place to leave it. Jason, thank you so much for taking the time. It's much appreciated. I know we've been trying to do this for a couple of weeks, well, more than a couple of weeks, but I'm glad we finally made it happen. It was really enjoyable.
Yeah, I really appreciate everything. And just a big shout out to yourself. I mean, you're keeping so many people involved in a sport we love, and that shouldn't be taken for granted, Sam. So big respect to you, and thanks for having me. It's an honour.